Welcome back everybody to R44's YouTube channel. Today is brake day. It's the next kind of step on the build of the F80, getting it ready for track season here in the UK. So you find me surrounded by some amazing brake components, from fluid to lines to brake pads to brake discs. So let's talk a little bit about the F80 in general. This is running full OEM kind of brake setup, OEM pads, OEM calipers, lines and fluid. And I need to update everything pretty much, get it ready for track season. This car is going to be designed so it can be just put on a track and used how I want to use it, as hard as I want to use it, and drive it home from the racetrack with no issues and drive it on the road. Recently it's just had a new engine, hybrid turbos, running about 620 brake, very smooth, again mapped for track rather than just straight line performance. So less about that, less more about what's in front of me. So we'll start from the boring stuff all the way to the fun stuff. So I'm just a lover, personal preference, SRF fluid. I've used it since day one really, and I believe in it. It's just a really good fluid. Can take temperature really well. It can bounce back from temperature. So if you kind of overheat your brakes a little bit, it bounces back really well. And I've been using that for years. It's a bit pricey. I think it's about almost £100 a bottle. On average, you need about 2 bottles to bleed it through, especially when we're doing lines. Going on to lines, we've chosen the EBC braided lines. You can obviously get, EBC don't do colors, there's other brands that do colors, but these look clean. So EBCs, you know, they've got all the correct connections on both sides. They're braided. They've also got the right connections to kind of lock them in to the hub. So yeah, uprating the lines. This will help with consistency of braking, temperature again. Stock lines are just rubber lines. They can have problems when it transfers from the metal lines to the rubber. You can have issues with temperature. So again, that resolves all of that. Pads. So I've gone for the RPX pads. I've been using them again for a couple years now. When we had our M2, we ran the same setup as this. And this is like a bulletproof track setup. But the RPXs, I think, are the best balance. So you're getting really good value for money, really good braking performance. There's obviously like Padgett RS29s or something like that, which are an amazing pad, but the price bracket is a lot higher, and the performance is only, I'd say, on parallel. So when you're doing track days like I'll be doing, it's just like picking up a couple track days a month, you'll be wearing through pads either way you go. And as long as the performance is there, that's all I mind, and obviously cost, because it gets costly. So I quite like EBCs, you know, it's my personal preference what goes on this car. RPXs have always been really good. And yeah, mainly it's just the value for money and performance is both up there for a race pad, because these race pads can get really expensive. And then 2-piece discs, these are an absolute must. Even if you go for your pad that you've been using on your cars for the last 10 years, you need these on your car. So stock discs kind of are like a floating, you know, not a traditional 2-piece disc like this, but the materials on hard braking over time, they just warp. You get constant issues where you go on a track day, you've had a bit too much fun. The next day you're going on the motorway, you put on the brakes and you go brrr, and you get a bit of vibrations. And that is all down to the stock discs. Put these bad boys on and it resolves that immediately. So you can put these through quite heavy heat cycles and they bounce back really well. In the case of something going wrong, it tends to be the actual disc. Then you just undo these, change the discs at half the price or whatever, and then you retain the bells. So, you know, your investment is there. Again, if you're running track pads, you can wear out these discs, especially the OEM ones, they wear out a lot quicker. But if you're using a race pad with these discs, they can take the wear and tear and the friction, and then again, once they're worn out, just replace the outsides, and they look wicked. You know, the black bells, black discs originally, obviously that will grind off. But yeah, that's like the combo that we're putting onto this car. We've got discs going on the front and the rear, so they're gonna look cool, they're gonna brake good, and this will be the final kind of the last bits of setting up before we take our first track day. Then we'll try that suspension, change the suspension, put some top mounts on it, change to like a different, maybe a height adjustable suspension, get the settings, the corner weighting right, then we'll go to coilovers. But yeah, it's time. EBC, again, pads, lines and discs, all made here in the UK. Actually, like, you know, some bits in Bristol, it's like midway up the country as well. good quality, you can't complain. And yeah, we'll run you through the install. I'll jump on when there's some key bits to look for, like especially when you kind of remove the stock disc, there's a couple bits to look out for. But other than that, enjoy the video. Any questions, hit up our sales line, brakes, and again, just briefly touching some key questions. Obviously we get a lot. EBC brakes, what do you go for if you don't want to go for full race pads? Because obviously you will get brake kind of squeak noises from this. This is the track setup, you know, realistically. So I'd recommend if you're running a similar setup, but you want a road / track, maybe a blue stuff. The yellow stuff is a good pad. It's an OEM plus pad. It's road legal. It's very hard to get aftermarket pads that are road legal. Yellow stuff is road legal, and I'd say it's one step up from OEM. But if you put it on a racetrack, you'll get fade a little bit and you will wear them out a lot quicker, because the second that temperature gets up, you start eating through that pad. Whereas these, if you ask anybody that's been on track with me, I end up just going out, coming in, grabbing another passenger or having a quick drink and then going straight back out. You hardly get any fade with this setup. And if you want to give it a go, just hit us up, invite us to a track day and we'll come down and you can come out, you can drive the car. So yeah, if anybody's got some cool track days that want us to attend anywhere in Europe, hit us up, we will come and you guys can try out these brake setups and see what you think. But this is my brake setup for 2023, and let's get installing. All right, everybody, we have now got the wheel off. So you can see this is a 80,000 mile old car. It's probably had 2 or 3 discs in its time. So they're looking horrible, rusty, just purely disgusting. So pads look all right, again, original OEM. So let's have a walk through. So this is the left-hand side of the car. This has the wear sensor. We're gonna lose the wear sensor going with the RPX pad because it's designed for off-road use and race car stuff. So who cares about the wear? You just look inside and you can tell if it's worn. So first step first is removing the original pads. 2 pins, get a little, we have a little pin that goes in to there and just knock it out and follow it all the way through, knock it out all the way through. Pull your pads forward and backwards. If you're just disposing them, you can use a bit of a screwdriver and just push back your pads. Do this all now. I highly recommend doing all of that now, because when there's, is there meant to be something else here? An M. Gone by. Get in the comments, what should we change the color of our calipers? What do you think, doing? White? No chance. Imagine white on a race car. I want like gold or something, you know, like AMG, ceramic vibes, and then maybe a gold cage. That's another thing, cage. I think white cage, match the Porsche, maybe yellow wheels. Yellow, black wheels. The wheels we have coming, serious, look out for that. Anyways, back to the brakes. Yes, push your pads out first, very important, while the caliper's still in place. That way, when you go to reassemble it, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Then on the back of here, there's some 2 sockets on the back. Pulls your caliper out, hang it off with a hanger, hang it up on your suspension. You can see, this is the classic. You ask us and you try and beat us down on price and say, oh yeah, no worries, buddy, next door the city can do my brakes for £50. And we say, no, we do it for this much. Because look, when you bring your F80 here, 1 bolt's broken off in it, 1 bolt's completely stripped. So I'm not too sure how we're gonna get that out. We will work that out, but they're the 2 pain points of the F-Series brake change. Because if the car's done 50,000 miles of hard braking, you can see slightly, the rotation goes that way, it's off center. So anyways, a lot of pressure goes into these 2 screws somehow, even though it's like bolted down. These can be hard to get out. If it's in good condition, get your bit in there, hammer it in, get some vibrations through the fixing, and then put some heat into it, and then brake it, but be very cautious. If it's slightly about to turn, stop what you're doing, come up with a new idea, hit it more. Sometimes tap it with a little hammer. So yeah, that's gonna be fun for Aldred, our tech. Thankfully it's not me doing it today, so that's his problem. Take those 2 out, take off the disc, new disc goes on. New screws, put the screws back in, then put your caliper back on, slide your pads in. Also recommended, if you're doing all this again, we will be replacing the pins. So there's these pins that you take out, we sell replacements. It's good to replace them when you do them. Might as well, especially when you're doing the full lot, might as well go fresh all at once. Then you know from this date, this mileage, I put all of the new stuff on, and you record it, how many track days, how many miles you've done. So we'll put new pins on, put the pads in, make sure you use grease. We'll show you briefly what grease we have. We'll put it on our website actually, so the link will be in the description for the brake grease. And that's that. And then lines. Once it's all reassembled, we'll do the lines. So we'll just loosen everything off. Literally just, you can't really do much about losing the pressure. You're just gonna have to loosen it off there, connect the lines, connect them up, and away you go. The best thing is connect it, crimp this line, put the new line here, follow up the other line, connect it there, and then you're done. Do it all the way around and then bleed from the furthest point from the reservoir. Bleed it all around. For example, one tip, if you're buying that expensive fluid and you're doing your lines, recommend buying some cheaper fluid, run that through the system to do all your bleeding, and then going through with the more expensive stuff. Otherwise, bleeding in the system, if you make a mistake, you have to do it all again, you're just wasting money on fluid. Do the bleeding properly with some cheaper stuff, get the system bled, no air, then replace the fluid, and then just get the final bits of air out, get the new fluid through it, and then you'll be winning. So that's it. That's a quick overview of what we're gonna do. Dylan will showcase some stuff, but we'll get cracking, and we'll let you know how we get on with these 2 screws.
It's like fun, like.
Alright, anyways, we are now in the F80. So you've seen the brakes being installed. We're now in the car with a good customer, and actually an F82 customer of ours. And we're gonna kind of get this car up to speed and jam on the brakes and let him give us some of his feedback to see what he thinks of the brakes. So we're running the RPX front pads and the rear pads and the uprated discs. And then obviously we're now in, I don't know at the time of the video if it had the full cage in it, the seats and everything. I'm glad we have the brakes, no?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's a serious car. So we are. So we let's get up to a bit of speed and we'll jam the brakes on. See, like, it feels like the whole tires are just,
Yeah, it's literally
there's grip and then they're stopping. But we just went over some water, so the tires are like locking up, and obviously with the EBCs you need to get them up to a bit of temperature before they actually come to any use of such. Go up and do a bit of a roundabout. What do you think?
They're just solid, like,
Yeah.
honestly, just solid.
So yeah, we've got,